Buddhism. Buddhism is the one that actually stuck. And not, in all honesty, not because of the Buddha, who is not a god, by the way. Buddhism is a non-theistic religion, or philosophy if you prefer, meaning that you don't have to believe in God to be a Buddhist. And the Buddha himself, if he was real, said, I am only a man. I'm not a god. I'm only a man. He really pushed that. His story is great too. Siddhartha. If you've never read the book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, I think. Hermann Hesse. I highly recommend it. That is my all-time favorite book. And it is pretty much the book, it's the Buddha. The story of the Buddha. And it's beautiful. Siddhartha is the Buddha's name. It's Siddhartha Gautama. The actual Buddha, a guy who was, he was born in India into wealth. Hidden from all suffering by his father. So he was like a rich kid, a brat, pretty much. Cell phone, video games, all the consoles. Probably smoked a lot of dope, did drugs. And then one day, he has a driver, right, in a limousine. And they're driving around India. And they're only allowed to go a certain way, a certain path, to take Siddhartha to wherever he would be going. Party at a friend's house, right? House party. And before they got there, he was looking through the window, tinted window, so no one could see him, He was Siddhartha. He was big time. He'd wear the I'm a pretty big deal shirt quite often. And he saw like an old man, and asked his driver, what is that guy over there? What is that? He's all hunched over, the dude, walking with a stick, droopy face, limping, pretty much ready. He should have bought the scooter, right? But he's pretty poor, he can't afford it, doesn't have insurance. So, the driver, Jeeves, I'll call him, leans back and says, well, Sid, that's an old man. And when you get old, your body gives way. And, I'm going to quicken the story because there's more to it. But eventually, Jeeves explains to Sid that you die. There's pain. Okay, you live, right? You're born. You enjoy life. You suffer. You suffer more. You enjoy life. You suffer more, and then you die. With joy and suffering intermingled in between. And Sid could not handle it. He was like, what? Because I don't know how old he is. He's older than a teen, I'm pretty sure. Old enough to not be living at home with pops. But why wouldn't you at that point, right? So, eventually, Sid convinces his dad that he wants to figure life out and that he doesn't want to live in this fake harmony that his dad set up for him. Riches gives him and ease of life, very little to no suffering. He wanted to experience suffering because he had it, and he knew everyone else had, pretty much. So he went and did it. He suffered. I mean, the stories are he would join these like other religions, local religions or cults or whatever you want to call them, starving yourself, so fasting. There's an exact same story of pretty much 40 days, 40 nights, like in the Bible. And keep in mind that Buddhism is older than Christianity. The Buddha lived long before Jesus. So he went out, he mutilated his body. All in the name of trying to find out the cause, the root cause of suffering, and then how to transform that suffering into something positive. I won't say good, but positive. And eventually, through many failures, he was in his 30s, I believe, when he sat below the Bodhi tree and meditated. And maybe that was the 40 days, 40 nights. I don't recall, to be honest, but he was enlightened. And this is where it gets tricky for me, because I don't know what that means, enlightened. I've gone to a number of Buddhist monasteries. I went to India, Thailand, studied under some Buddhist monks. I was an avid meditator for a long time. Now I do it not nearly as much as I should, but I'll tell you, man, meditation will change your life. I don't care what you are, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Taoist, Satanist, Wiccan, I don't care. Meditation is for you. It's for everyone. Packing another bowl here. My haunted bookshop. Bic. Why pink? Why not? Very anti-gay. We're the Pentecostals, Apostolic Pentecostals. AIDS was a plague by God. When there was a catastrophe, when there is a catastrophe, it's because, unfortunately, it needed to happen. It needed to happen because of the specific people involved. They would justify it. I would justify it. Say, oh my God, there was a shooting, all these people died. Well, God needed them because, of some reason, or more likely, they deserved it. And that was because I couldn't deal with the reality of it. Of just innocent people dying. And also in weather catastrophes, storms, tsunami, tornadoes. It was because, it hit that town, killed those people, ruined these people's lives, tore down their homes. And unfortunately, they probably should have prayed more. No one will tell you this. No one would say that. But it was just like the underlying belief. Buddhism, back to it. Meditation was the one thing that worked for me. More than prayer, even though prayer can be important, no doubt. I don't believe necessarily for the exact same reasons that a lot of people do, but I think it's extremely helpful. For me, not so much, but meditation, yes. India was a trip, man. I would not go back. Although I hear it's changed quite a bit. It was scary when I went. The food was amazing. Saw the Dalai Lama. Although, my main dude is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Vietnamese monk. That guy will knock your socks off. His book's so simple, and so beautiful, and so inspiring. Thich Nhat Hanh. Vietnamese Buddhist monk. I read all of his stuff. Yeah. I've seen him speak. He's a very little dude. Bald, of course. Robe. Old now. Not doing so hot. We all die. All of us. Doesn't matter what you believe. You're gonna die. So, it'd be cool if every religion was right. So if you were Christian, you would go to heaven or hell. If you were Muslim, you would get the virgins in their heaven. Buddhists, you would reach enlightenment in life. And also reincarnation. It's not what you would think. People think, oh, you die and then you're rebirthed. That's not reincarnation. True reincarnation, as a Buddhist would believe it. It's more in depth than that. And it kind of makes sense, to be real honest, because it's somewhat scientific and factual. So, I do remember the moment that I had to make the decision that I no longer believe that after life there is anything. I had to make that decision. There was a moment in my life where I went from believing it to not believing it. Or telling myself that I believed it, I should say. Because I had not believed it for a long time. But it had been all I was taught, all I was told as a child and in my teens as an adult. It was hard to break through that. It was sad, actually, when scary and lonely, because you die and that's that, right? And what were you before you were born, though, right? Do you remember that? Where were you? Same thing where you're going to go when you die. I'd imagine. Makes the most logical sense. Although lately I've been believing in something that's not even a religion. Man, it's so weird, but like we're a sim of some sort. A simulation. Not even of humans, of something else. Like we're a God. Okay, so if you believe God made us to worship Him, is it possible that God or other, not whatever you think of God, not that, something else, is it possible that it's something else than what you believe? The reality of what is could be different than what you believe. Just because you were taught that and told that and reiterated it for, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years does not mean you are correct. Thailand was gorgeous, beautiful. I'd go back there in a heartbeat. Food, people, the landscape, tropics. In India, I went to a place called McLeod-Ganj. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's in the Himalaya mountains. That's where all the Tibetan refugees came, and a lot of them stayed there, the monks. So it's a city on the side of a mountain in the Himalayas, a Himalayan mountain, literally on the side of a mountain, buildings, homes, a road, right, like this, but it's a city, big city. Not big city, compared, but, bigger than you'd think on the side of a mountain. And that was awesome. I'd walk up there and it was like this some of the time, dripping rain, cool in the morning. You'd hear out in the forest the monks chanting. I'll never forget that. That was amazing. Early morning, walking to the city from our hostel, and up the path. I was probably alone most of the time. I went with a friend, but we do our own thing. And the monks chanting. I forgot about that. Man, that was amazing. It was just like surreal. I stopped in my tracks and just closed my eyes and listened. And it was beautiful. It was eerily beautiful. Because their chants are low, like guttural, like that. It was so cool. And it's a number of monks, not just one, right? Like a number of them. In unity. Pretty cool. So I would go back there. Although there were a lot of rabid dogs. And, this is interesting, to get from the city, which is on the side of the mountain, to where the Dalai Lama resided, and his monks, what have you, you had to walk through a leper colony. Now, it was a small leper colony, right? So there was probably about 20 to 30 lepers. Is that politically correct? Leper? I don't know. And it was something else. It was biblical in my head, like, because that's all I knew of leper colonies. And I would see people, travelers, hugging these lepers, the people with leprosy. I saw one kiss one on a cheek, and it freaked me out. Because I was like, it's like AIDS when you first came out. Like, what? Like, don't touch anyone, don't touch anything. But apparently, leprosy can be not healed, but prevented with nothing. Like, we can prevent it, no problem now. But in third world countries, when a baby is born, they don't have that same technology, availability, knowledge, education. But that was a cool experience. Very cool. The food was awesome. I wouldn't go back. Thailand, I'd go back. Not India. Unless I just went to McLeod-Ganj. Or if it's really changed quite a bit. Because it was sad when I went. All right, guys. Have a good one. Nice talk.